You hate those words, don't you, when you get older especially? We hate the words hospice. But we also know that he's a child of God. And the Lord's going to take care of him regardless. We're in Luke chapter 12, beginning at verse 13. Luke chapter 12, verse 13. We'll read, in fact, the Lord's going to teach us about covetousness, about what to avoid and how to live our life as a Christian in verses 13 through 21. So let's read verses 13 through 15. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbitrator over you?" Then he said to them, "Beware and be on your guard against every form of greed. For not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions." So, you look at this, and out of a multitude of people, you can picture it in your mind, there's countless people that follow Jesus. Everywhere he goes, they show up. And they have here. And out of that crowd, this one man draws the attention of Jesus out of the crowd. He's asking Jesus to tell his brother to divide their inheritance. The only thing I can think of, he must be the younger brother. And maybe the older brother is going to try to keep it all. We don't know the details of this, but Jesus is going to make an application here, and we're to see that application. He asked Jesus to tell his brother to divide his settlement, and Jesus says, "I'm not an arbitrator of this settlement." There's no evidence that the brother's even willing to settle the matter in this way. So this man wants Jesus to do that, and Jesus is going to use this to make an application for us to not think physical, but to think what? Spiritual. Listen, we can think physical all we want, can't we? But it doesn't last. So what is the most important thing that Jesus is trying to get across to us on the way to think? How? Think which way? Spiritual. Because this physical is not going to last forever. In fact, it can come up real short. So he wants us to think of eternal things, to put the physical things we know we have to have, don't we? There's no doubt. We have to have money, we have to have cars, we have to have a job, we have to have all of these things. But what's the key to that? What's the key for us when we have this stuff and things? We have to realize that who gave them to us. Yeah, Patricia, God gave those to us. He had blessed us with those. So that's why we won't always have them. Somebody else will. Somebody else, you give it to it goes to your kids sell it or give it away or lose it. So it's the spiritual that's most important in our lives. And he's going to, that's the emphasis that he's going to try to tell us. And I might mention this. In the law of Moses, the old law, they divided the estate when somebody died, and you did according to Deuteronomy 21 and verse 17. You did that. The oldest brother got 2/3, and the youngest brother got 1/3. But things that we don't know about this case, is this the younger brother asking the question to tell my brother or to divide the inheritance? Or maybe the older brother says, I'm not going to, or maybe it's not the time to do that. There's just all kinds of things. So Jesus tells him in verse 14, who made me judge? Who made me arbitrator over this? He refuses to get involved in worldly matters. He doesn't want to judge family fusses And that's what you got here, family fusses or lawsuits. And what he wants us to do is to render the things to Caesar that are what? Caesar's. And render to God the things that are God's. That's John 18 and verse 36. His kingdom, he says, is not of this world. Jesus' kingdom is not of this world. It's not over worldly things. Jesus blesses our lives, God does. And Jesus many times corrected those mistaken on views of his mission to why he came to this earth. But he declined to get involved in this, but he uses it to warn us against the sin of covetousness. Covetousness, what in the world does covetousness mean? How many times do we use that in today's world? But what does it mean? What does covetousness mean? You know what it means to me? Greedy. I don't know if that's the only word. Greedy.
But it means I got it and you don't.
Yeah. I got what you don't, and I want what you have. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so unlawful desires of things that you want what others have. Yes, sir.
This thought between physical and spiritual, when you stop and think about it, that probably, and I'm talking about Christians, that probably hinders our ability to understand the Scripture more than anything.
I think so.
Because we think physically,
Yeah.
and what God has to offer us. I mean, you stop and think about all of the studies and the wonderings we have about death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heaven,
Yeah.
the other place.
Yeah. Hell.
The things, if we try to put a physical spin,
Yeah.
and it's not there.
Yeah.
But it's our inability.
Part of us is humans.
Exactly. And we have to, the sooner we start thinking spiritually, the better understanding we're going to have of what God has in store for us.
Thank you. It also makes this life worthwhile, doesn't it? Thank you very much. Paul said in 1 Timothy 6 and verse 17, instruct those who are rich in this present world not to be conceited or to fix their hope on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly supplies us with all things to enjoy. So now he's going to speak a parable, and it's on this. And we know this parable so well. All of us do. We've seen some different versions of it, like in Matthew, but they all address the same. So in verses 16 through 21, we know this. We know this parable. In verse 16, and he told them a parable, saying, the land of a rich man was very productive. And he began reasoning to himself, saying, what shall I do, since I have no place to store my crops? Then he said, this is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years to come. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your soul is required of you. And now, who will own what you have prepared? So was the man who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Now he's going to get even more specific here in a minute. But this parable is, I call it the rich farmer. I mean, this guy has pretty good barns, but he wants bigger barns because God has blessed him beyond belief with produce, with the fields and everything as a farmer cherishes in the physical life its man has. And he wants to build bigger barns. And in my mind, I'm thinking of these bigger barns. I'm seeing in one bigger barn, all his grain is stored up in these granaries. And then you got a huge barn over here, and all of his equipment is in it. So he's got some plans. But what it shows is the abundance of earthly possessions, of stuff and things. That's not the key to life. And that's what he's trying to get across to us. No matter how much we want and how much we have, it's not the key to life. And we want those things. We do. We're humans. We have to have it. But the possession of stuff and things is not the key to life. And it, for certain, it didn't save this rich farmer. He had all his earthly possessions, and it became his condemnation, didn't it? It became what was bad for him instead of good. The rich man gained his wealth. He gained it honestly, didn't he? He gained it from hard work. He didn't cheat nobody. His earthly possessions, though, became his condemnation. Because he didn't know what? How to handle it. Yeah. And to handle what he had. There's so many things he could have done with it, couldn't he? I mean, he didn't have to give it all away. I'm not saying that. And Jesus is not saying that either. But he could have gave some to somebody who needed. Yes, sir.
He thought he did it all on his own. Because when you look at the scriptures, I and my
Yeah.
come right behind in a few verses there.
You're exactly right.
The grain or the barns or anything, it was added.
Yeah. He did it all himself.
He did it all on his own. He
Yeah.
had a plan, but he wasn't considered people or God or anybody like that.
That's right. Thank you very much. That's right. So he thought he would pull down those barns and build big ones. And then what does he think he's going to do then? He's going to lay back, isn't he? He's going to eat, drink, and be merry. He's going to have a good time. He's got an abundance. He's going to help. He's going to do everything for himself, that Todd said. Eat, drink, and be merry. Take it easy. He made no attempt to help anybody else or from his abundance. And so he was busy planning so he could hoard it all up, have everything for himself, and live that life of comfort and pleasure. What did God call him? What did the Lord call him? A fool. A fool. He was a fool because he gave no credit to God for everything that God had blessed him with. He thought like Todd said, he did it all himself, and he wasn't living, in other words, with the right motive. He was misguided, and his mistake was fatal, wasn't it? He had everything, but the mistake he made was his attitude and thinking it was all about him. Well, the rich man was telling his soul. I mean, he's saying to his soul, he's saying to himself, I got everything I want. I did it all. I'm gonna eat, drink, and be merry. I'm gonna have a life of ease. And God tells him, you're a fool, because this very night your soul's required of you. And then he tells him, all that you have, it's a true statement. You brought, it's going to be somebody else. Your kids aren't going to appreciate it like you have. They'll sell it or steal it, or sell it or give it away, or somebody will steal it. And I guess the true statement is you brought nothing into this world, and what? You can't take nothing out. Yeah. The only thing you can take out is what? Take with you. Heavenly treasures. Lay up treasures in heaven. So how do we do that? How do we lay up treasures in heaven? We take from our abundance and help others. We're thankful to God. We live a faithful life to Him. There's so many things that we can do to lay up treasures in heaven. So when the Lord in this parable told him, your soul is required of you, this night your soul is required of you, can you imagine the fear that came over him? Can you? Remember when you were a kid and you get scared? Fear came over you? I do. I remember when something terrible happened in my family. And the fear started in my feet, worked its way up. Your hands feel like they're 10 times bigger than they are. I imagine that's the kind of fear this guy had. You brought nothing into the world. You're not going to take anything out of it.
That hadn't crossed his mind.
Had never crossed his mind.
He was dead in
Had never, yeah. He hadn't even thought about God, had he? Earthly possessions give you no comfort in the hour of death. That's his message. But what you have and your attitude about God and about His blessings, it may bring about condemnation for us eternally. Job, I want you to look at Job. Job 27, begin at verse 16. Hold your place there, but look at Job, the book of Job, chapter 27, begin at verse 16. I've always liked this. I don't know if I know exactly fully what it means. But Job chapter 27, begin at verse 16. Though he piles up silver like dust, and prepares garments as plentiful as clay, he may prepare it, but the just will wear it, and the innocent will divide the silver. He has built his house like spider's web, or as a hut which the watchman has made. He lies down rich, but never again. He opens his eyes, and it is no longer. Terrors overtake him like a flood. A tempest steals him away in the night. That's not a good sign, is it? That's not a good dream. That's not a good thing. Amazing. I've always looked at that. I don't know if I really understand that whole thing, but I know I understand enough of it to be careful as a Christian. Now he's going to talk about worry. And I guess this is number one for a lot of us, is worry. He's going to teach us about worry and how worry is discouraged, and we all know this so well too. In verse 22, let's read 22 through 34. And he said to his disciples, "For this reason I say to you, do not worry about your life as to what you will eat, nor for your body as to what you will put on. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap. They have no storeroom, nor barn, yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than birds? And which of you by worrying can add a single hour of his life to his lifespan? If then you cannot do even the very little thing, why do you worry about other matters? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, but I tell you, not even Solomon in all his glory is clothed like himself, like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass in the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, how much more will he clothe you, ye men of little faith? And do not seek what you will eat and what you will drink, and do not keep worrying, for all these things the nations of the world eagerly seek. But your Father knows that you need these things. But seek his kingdom, and all these things will be added to you. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has chosen gladly to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to charity, make yourselves money belts which do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near, nor moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? Jesus turns the crowd from his disciples, turns from the crowd to his disciples and you and I. He rebukes hoarding, possessions like the rich man, the rich farmer. And so now he turns to anxious and worry in our lives. Because, let me ask you something. Do you think that rich farmer, what do you think he worried about? Did he worry? I imagine he did. And what would he worry about if he worried? Keeping what he has, keeping that and having more. So Jesus begins with talking to us about being anxious and worrying in our lives about food and clothing and stuff and things that that God gives us. And to believe that God will bless us, that's what he wants us to be. To trust in God so that we'll believe that God will bless us and our labors and place greater importance on the spiritual values. So Jesus says, consider the ravens. I mean, Palestine was loaded with ravens. They had lots of ravens. And do you know what kind of a bird a raven is? You know what he eats? He's kind of like a buzzard. He eats flesh. He's a predator. And raven was what Noah first sent out of the ark in Genesis 8 and verse 7. He first sent a raven out. And what happened to the raven? He didn't come back. And I'm speculating here. But if you had floating rotten flesh or floating rotten wood that had dead things on it, that's where that raven would have went. He had plenty to eat, so he didn't go back. So, remember, who fed Elijah? Do you remember when Elijah, not the widow, but Elijah had been running from Ahab and Jezebel, and he goes to a creek. God sends him to this creek, and God feeds him. In 1 Kings 17, you read all about it. The ravens bring him food twice a day, in the morning and the evening. The ravens feed him. They bring meat of some kind. They feed him. And finally the brook dries up. That's always been one of my favorite lessons. What do we do when the brook dries up? We call on God. We call on God. So Jesus says the ravens, they don't sow and they don't reap. Neither did they store up like the rich man's barns. They live. They have no anxiety about food because God feeds them. God cares for them. And He sure cares for who? For us. We're more important than any birds. But He loves the birds too, and He even cares for them. So if He loves them, He sure loves us. And He doesn't want us to... He's not discouraging us not to work hard, is He? No, we work. That's what we do. We work for food. We work for money. We work for groceries. We work to buy cars. We work to live in homes. We do all these things. And He's not talking about that. He's discouraging us to worry about that kind of stuff and to be full of anxiety over temporary things that don't even last. That's hard for us to get a hold of, I know. But everything that we have in this life that we work so hard for, that we worry about keeping, that we are anxious over, they don't even last. They don't even last. They'll be gone one day. Everything on this earth will be gone. Now, even the elements will be gone. But we worry, don't we? But He doesn't want us to be worrying people. In fact, He says in verse 25, which of you by being anxious can add a single inch to your height? I had a brother that Out of 7 kids, he was the shortest. I felt sorry for him. He was about 5'3". He's probably 5'4", wasn't he? And he wanted to be 6 foot so bad. He just wanted to bad. I mean, in high school, he just wanted it so bad that, but he didn't have them things like you can buy today, the lifts and all that kind of things. I don't know, but you know what he did? He put wooden blocks in his shoes. He had these wooden blocks about this tall. Boy, I'd hate to get a splinter in your foot, but he did. He put them in the heel of his shoes and boots. And everybody at school knew. We all knew because half his heel was sticking out of the back of his shoes. That's why he tried to wear boots all the time. Everybody knew. Did that do him any good? Nah. No, I didn't. But as far as a guy that knew electricity and fixing wire or wireless things and being a genius in electronically, boy, he was 8 feet tall. 8 feet tall. But he sure worried about that. But he couldn't add a thing to it. You can't change how tall you are. You can't change how old you are. I know I used to worry about the grade, boy, and I'd hit that just for men. It worked when I was 40. It really worked. But it started not to work, and it became green. And I got a picture of it in green. So we just can't worry about things like that. Those things are temporary. You can't change how tall you are, how short you are, how old you are. It's useless. So why worry, Jesus says, about things you can't do? You can't do anything about. He's got a point, doesn't he? His message to us is stop worrying and do what? Trust in God. Trust in God. You know, a lot of times I've thought of this. I don't even know if I can explain it. I'm probably, this is one of my weaknesses. I can tend to be a worrywart. Beverly tends to be a worrywart. She tends to worry about and anxious about things, the family, the grandkids, and all of that. So let me ask you something. This is something I've been thinking a long time about. We form habits, don't we? What do you think would change our life if we could make it a habit that instead, when you start to worry about things, that you pray about it? I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm being serious. I'm not trying to act like a preacher and talk about prayer and all that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to make an application to my own life. What do you think that would do? What do you think that if we could make it a habit that every time we started to worry, if we can make it a habit to brush our teeth, if we can make it a habit to wear a hat, if we can make it a habit to have our favorite shoes, if we can make all those habits that we develop, if we could make a habit that when we start to worry and fret, to pray, would that help? Would that stop us from doing that? It would, wouldn't it? So I guess that's it. Let's make it a habit. I'll try. I'll try to do that. I'll try to make it a habit, if you will. I'm going to stop here. I didn't know the time was getting away. We'll talk more about this when we come back next week. Anybody have anything they want to add before we close it out?
You know, it says worry can't add to your life,
Uh-huh.
but it sure can take away.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It can. It can't add nothing, but worry will kill, won't it? It'll kill us. Yeah, it will. Doctor tell you that. I hope I didn't talk too much. I like for y'all to talk too. But we're talking about one of my favorite subjects. I guess that's why I talk too much about it. Thank you for being here.